It's like my spirit came out of my body and I'm looking at myself there in the bed doing the journey, and I'm like, this is where I needed to be. This is what needed to happen. You're in a safe space.
Whenever I'm taking someone through the experience, I know it's not just me. That person's higher spirit, their ancestors, their spiritual team, their guardian angels, like there's a whole team doing this experience. So then I understand I'm just a vessel. Your first journey is like a moment that you'll never
I will never forget it. And I wear it like a badge of honor. Most people pick a lane: science or spirit, medicine or ceremony, the clinic or the jungle. Today's guest chose all of them. Alex Lucien has spent over 20 years at the intersection of healthcare, healing arts, and ancestral wisdom. He is a trained pharmacist and occupational therapist who also spent a decade apprenticing with indigenous shamans across multiple lineages. He has facilitated over 500 ceremonies. Wow. Supporting people from the ages of 16 to 92 through some of the most profound transformations of their lives. His work integrates sound healing, breath work, plant medicine, meditation, and somatic practice into what he calls an intentional container for healing. And if you've ever felt like you've been holding your breath for years, waiting for permission to finally let go, his work and his words are for you. Alex, welcome to Rooted in Resilience.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for this beautiful introduction. And I am extremely honored and grateful to be here.
The honor is all mine. Your work is truly amazing. You have changed the lives of so many people and opened the door for beautiful things, including my own.
It is definitely something that I wasn't looking for. It certainly found me. And it started with me in my own journey. So every single time I've taken someone through an experience, it's almost like I'm taking myself through the experience. So I'm seeing myself in them. And that's how it became what it is today, because I started to share this with the people that were around me. And then eventually they started to ask me, I want to experience something similar. And then I would just guide them on the same process that I took myself through. And that's how it grew to what it is today.
That's wonderful. It is amazing. You have a background in pharmacy and occupational therapy, two very clinical, evidence-based fields. That's correct?
That is correct.
At some point, you walked away from that path towards something entirely different, which are these journeys. Like, walk me through that journey of how you came here from, your studied profession and what made you want to go in that direction.
Pharmacy led me into occupational therapy because I didn't like the way the pharmacy industry was going. And I wanted something where there was a little bit more greater connection with the person that I'm working with. And that's what led me to occupational therapy. And when I was in occupational therapy, that's when I started to really go through my own transformation and beginning to understand different ways of connecting with oneself and different ways of tending to the mind, body, and spirit. And that's what led me to meditation, led me to my own personal development as well, too. And at the same time, I got this instrument called a tank drum while I was doing occupational therapy. So I would do a treatment with a client. And then at the end of it, I would save the last 5 or 10 minutes and I would do a little meditation with my drum with them. And I started to notice a shift that was taking place with just those 5, 10 minutes. So then over time, as I started to understand more about the true capacity of what, how being in a certain state can change somebody, is when in 2016, I had my first plant medicine experience, which was ayahuasca and San Pedro, which is also called Wachuma. And that profoundly changed the direction and course of my life. And from 2016 on, I started to be more, say, exposed to plant medicine and that ceremonial world. And as I started to educate myself more, then I found me getting pulled in even more. So then over time, somewhere around maybe 2019, 2020, that's when things started to kind of shift over, where I was doing a lot more medicine, ceremonial work, and a lot less of the therapy work. And then over time, I was working in Florida, and then I started to do similar to like a travel nurse. They call it travel therapy. So I would work a contract, in Maine, California, Kauai, and I would do it for about 3 months. And then I would take a whole month off and just do nothing but this work. And it started off as just passion. And over time, that passion just became, what it is today, where people would say, I want to share something with you for this gift that you're giving me right now. And that's how, from like 2020 to about 2023, went that way till now. This is what I do pretty much full time.
Your passion became your purpose.
Yeah.
I truly believe in getting to know you, that this was your purpose.
I feel it's one of them. I feel like that purpose is still
It's evolving.
carving itself and being revealed over time.
Talk to me about the different modalities of plant-based journeys that that you've walked through with patients, and the different strengths that they each bring to those journeys.
I look at, you said modalities, tools, teachers, all these different pathways to understanding more about self. So for me, each of these different medicines are creating a different way of looking at yourself and a different way of seeing into your blind spots. So for me, psilocybin is like, they call it the kids. So it's like an introductory level into that world, versus ayahuasca is considered the mother, San Pedro Huachuma is considered the father. They're different teachers coming in at different times to work on different things. So those modalities, depending on where the person's at, that's how you're using the right tool for the right job. So then someone that's first entering into this plant medicine world, psilocybin tends to be a great introductory path, because it's almost like the lesson is a little bit more simpler.
Okay.
And it's not so complicated. It's also a shorter experience versus the other ones are a lot longer and a lot more in depth. So it's like when you think of getting your AA and then after that moving on to, so then this is something similar. So your system is able to comprehend it and digest it a little bit more because it's a lot more simpler.
Okay.
So that's why there are individuals that have, had asked me, I want to go do I want to go do this. And I'm like, I think it may be better for you to start with the psilocybin first. So that way you can get more acclimated to the field and become more accustomed to the changes that are taking place. So that way those changes could be sustainable. Because that's one thing I'm very big on. It's sustainable change, not doing the journey just to do the journey, but to have the experience to create long-lasting, sustainable change.
Okay. Wonderful. Was there a specific moment, like a patient or an experience or something you witnessed that cracked something open for you, like during their journey? Yeah, I know you're receiving a lot of energy, when you're in that room, when you're guiding their journey. Has that ever really opened something within you during that time, and you've had experiences while guiding someone?
When you asked the question, the first thing that came through was when I did the first combo session for my mom.
Okay.
And I say my mom because she's a person that knew me before this change.
Mhm.
So my ability to do this experience for her was like a way of saying thank you for, all the support that you've given me in my life. And now I'm in a position to support you back and to bring more clarity, more health, more vitality into your space. And there was a profound moment that we had at the end where it was almost she was looking at me as now I see that you're all grown up. You're not my little kid anymore.
Yeah.
So that was a very, very touching, special moment doing this work and seeing changes, because one of the things I noticed within her is there was a lot of anger in her field. And going through that process, I felt like she released a lot of that resentment and anger that might have been being built throughout her life. And ever since then, there's a lot more peace, there's a lot more ease in how she lives. So I would say that's one of the ones that profoundly touched me. Um, and this.
And that is amazing to share an experience that can help heal someone that you've looked to for such support and to raise you and guide you, and that now you could return that. That's beautiful. I love that.
And to get back to your question, in terms of like others that I've worked with, all of them have been profound in their own way, simply because as I'm doing this work, I've noticed that we're all having the same experience. Everyone thinks that they're going into their journey and whatever they may be navigating is kind of unique to them, which to a certain extent it is. But you see the humanness that we all have in common.
Mhm.
And that's the one thing that I've noticed doing this work. It's like, it doesn't matter from which part of the world you're from, we all have this common human experience that we're
Absolutely.
having. So there is this point of relatability in everyone's story. And I've been able to see myself in everyone as well too. So every time I'm taking someone through an experience, I can truly relate and connect to where they are. Because
Yeah.
at some point in my life, I've had some similar experience. And I would say that's what has overall like really touched me, is my ability to see that whatever I might have been navigating, there's so many other people navigating something similar. They're just telling the story differently, yet the human connection is there.
And it brings a sense of even greater community, you know.
Exactly correct.
We all travel similar paths, maybe with different routes,
Mhm.
and you can see that through people's journey.
Definitely.
You describe yourself as someone who bridges science and spirit. Most people are taught those two things are opposites. How did you come to see them as the same thing?
It's similar to when you look at, from my perspective, different religions are attempting to express something. And at the heart, they're almost kind of talking about the same thing just from a different angle. So I look at science and spirit as a similar thing. It's this oneness that is attempting to be created in that moment, but it's just being approached from a different angle, different vantage point. So then when you look at that whole picture, you're looking at the wholeness that wants to be created, which is why now in our society there is a lot more merging and blending of different paths or different ways of thinking. And I feel like science and spirit is actually getting to that point where they're no longer looking at each other as being opposites, or my way is better, or I'm proving a point to the other one. And it's more of, it's almost like looking at a whole circle, and this part is as necessary as that part. So then if they work together, then there becomes a unity and what I call a wholeness within the system. So then that's the reason why I feel like my path in my life has taken me through these different areas, so I can see all the different perspectives and sides to the situation and how to approach it. So then whenever I'm working with somebody, if they're taking medications and like if they are coming from the science world, I can relate to that. And if I'm working with someone, that's very spiritual, I can also understand them as well too.
So, and to that point, how do you manage both worlds? Like when you're in ceremony, does the former pharmacist in you ever show up in some of the some of the journeys or the ceremonies that you're performing?
I feel like There's a book that I read called IFS, which has to do with internal family system. So I see all the different parts of me show up depending on what's required in the moment.
Mhm.
So whatever the moment is calling for, I've gotten to a place where I've allowed whichever part wants to come through to come through. So there are moments when I'm having a conversation with somebody and they may ask me a question that's a little bit more on the medical side that I'm able to answer. And then I was talking with someone else where they're expressing something that's a little bit more philosophical or spiritual, and then that part of me comes out. So I've gotten to a place where I've taken the time through my personal development to give room for all those parts of me to be free in the present moment. So then, whatever part is necessary to come up and answer the question, then I give space.
And do you feel like going through these ceremonies with your patients that you grow as well from what they're going through, and you also receive benefits of what they're going through?
100%. It's always a mutual exchange taking place. Even though I'm the facilitator, I'm also receiving as much as I'm giving. So I always look at it as it's a give and take that's taking place. So for as much as I'm giving, I'm also receiving as I'm seeing this person literally changing in real time. Because I'm watching this person go through their experience and I'm watching them shift. And as I'm watching them shift, I'm also seeing parts of me in them and the way that they're responding or the way that they're behaving is also teaching me how to greater connect with my own self.
Mhm.
So then as I'm taking them through the experience, I'm also continuing my own work as well too. And not just looking at it as I'm the facilitator and then that's just where it stops. I'm creating space for that.
I've experienced both. I've been through a personal journey myself with you, and I've watched you conduct a journey for a loved one of mine, and you look so deep in the journey with them. It was beautiful to watch, and there's a lot of meditation and prayer that's happening, not just with the person who's receiving it, but with you as well. So it's really, really beautiful. Um, you spent 10 years training for this and apprenticing with different shamans across multiple lineages, like I said in your introduction. That's not a certification program, that's a life commitment. What did those 10 years actually require of you?
A lot of dedication, a lot of devotion, a lot of personal work in terms of seeing which parts of me were necessary to actually grow, change, mature, um, which parts of me required compassion. Because every single time I'm meeting someone else and I'm taking them through an experience, I can only give them what I have given myself.
Exactly.
So if I haven't been patient with myself, if someone is showing up requiring patience, it's going to be hard for me to be patient with them because I haven't really taken the time to be patient with myself. So a lot of this work is who am I being with me? And if I'm being loving, honest, being in integrity with myself, being compassionate, being patient, then when I'm taking someone else through an experience, I can also bring that to the table. I can bring that to them. And there is the logistical parts of understanding what you're doing in the experience, which is one aspect of it, which is, in my opinion, but it's easier to learn. It's just like, you're training for something. You get trained and you do it enough, you understand what you're doing. And that's one aspect of the work. But for me, I feel like the core aspect of the work is the individual that's showing up to actually facilitate the experience. And I came at it at first, just like, all the clinical stuff. I would learn how to do X, Y, and Z. But then I also have to ask myself, what am I doing this X, Y, and Z? So these past 10 years have really taught me that you can know the skills, but who are you actually working with those skills? Because you can be an imposter with the skills,
That is true.
um, or you can actually truly be yourself with those skills. So I would say that has been almost like I approached it initially thinking it was about the skills, but then eventually having to look at it like, no, it's more about me in relation to those skills.
That makes sense. No, absolutely. Because then you're showing up as your most authentic self, and that makes just the entire experience authentic.
Exactly correct.
Has there ever been a point where during the training that it was too much or you felt like you wanted to quit and maybe this wasn't the path?
So there are moments where I have felt that way, um, particularly when I was training with one of the medicines called combo, and to complete the program or the course or the training, you have to do 3 combo ceremonies within 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, me taking one person through one experience in 1 hour in the training, you had to experience that back to back 3 times within 3 hours. And it really taught me a lot about resilience. And one of the key things that showed up that day, and it stayed with me from that point on, it's this saying, whatever your brain is telling you in the moment, you always have a little bit more room to keep going. Just breathe.
Just breathe.
And
I love it.
from that point on, it didn't matter what showed up in my life, whether it was a training or something personal in my life. I took it as if this is showing up right now, it means I'm ready for it. So nothing is ever too much, it is always just enough. And I feel like a lot of this training and work has really taught me how to meet life and not look at something as, oh my God, it's too much, I can't handle it. And it's more like, oh, if it's showing up, then I'm going to meet it. I'm going to show up and actually be with what is coming up in my life and be present with it and take it one moment at a time. So I would say, yes, there's been moments of feeling like, but then there's moments where I'm like, I got this.
And I think too that's when resilience really shows up and you grow from those moments. You need those moments. So you have facilitated over 500 ceremonies. That's incredible for people ranging from ages 16 to 92 from every background imaginable. What has witnessing that much human transformation done to you or for you personally?
It's it's actually brought me closer to what does it truly mean to live and to have this experience we call life, and what does it actually truly mean to be able to connect with another, regardless of what age, regardless of what background, upbringing, way of life, whatever the person did for work, and how can I meet everyone where they're at. Doesn't matter what educational background they have. So I'm going to backpedal a little bit. My experience DJing really gave me the opportunity to just walk into an actual event or experience and then having to acclimate with whatever is taking place. So whether it was a wedding, whether it was a birthday party, sometimes the day of the actual event is where I'm meeting the person that I'm actually doing the event for. And I feel like that skill is what prepared me to meet someone on the day that I'm taking them through their experience and find a point of relatability. And my ability to kind of flex those muscles really created the path for me to get out of my own head and then just be like, okay, this is where we are. What is required in the moment? How can I connect with this person? What is that point where we can truly drop in and really lock into whatever is taking place? So whether it was someone that was in their 90s, 80s, 70s, didn't make a difference what it was, I allow myself to listen to what this person is expressing. And then from that point on, decide, where can I meet you to guide you to wherever it is that you're going? And I would say each time I took a person through an experience, it just brought me closer to just connecting, like getting out of the mind, how am I going to connect? Am I going to come from this angle or that angle? And it was more like, just show up in the present moment. In the present moment, you have enough experience. The present moment will just guide you on how to connect with this person.
That's a very interesting starting point. And being a former DJ and learning to come in and not just the person that you're there to, perform for, learning to read the room and the different energies to see where you're having the most impact. Yeah, I can see how that would definitely be a valuable skill that you just took and grew into this part of your path.
Because taking someone through the actual experience, there's all these reworkings that I'm doing with the playlist, with the instruments, with the vibe in the room. And all of that I learned, DJing different events and having to like see what's the vibe of the room and where am I taking this vibe. So then I took that same skill, and when I'm taking someone through an experience, I would realize, okay, we're here and their experience is wanting to go that way. How do I create the necessary vibe to take them there? So I call it skill stacking.
It's amazing. Is there any story, without, calling anyone out or naming anything, that stayed with you, like a transformation that you witnessed that changed you from going through it and witnessing it?
Cycling through the Rolodex of journeys. There's one that sticks out that really shifted for me. They're all so impactful in their own way. It's hard to choose one. If there is one that I would say that does stick out, I would say it's not just one experience, but I would say it's one person that I have taken. I think she's probably the person that I've done the most journeys for. And I've noticed every single time we would do the actual experience, we would get to the end and she would look at me and she's like, there's more. And that amount of dedication, devotion, and she would just light up because she would receive, I call them instructions or homework assignments, but it was basically something about herself, her life, her family, her loved ones that she can do more of, either be more attentive, be more loving, be more compassionate, approach it from a certain, angle. And I would watch her get the awareness and get right to the application. And then a certain time would pass and then I would get a call from her, I'm ready for the next one. Right. And every single experience was different. And then she would look at me at the end. There's more.
There's more. This is to be continued.
Yeah. So then it was more of seeing that one person go through so many different changes in such a short period of time and have that much dedication and devotion towards herself, her growth, her family, her loved ones, and wanting to just be the best version of herself. So I would say for me, it wasn't one experience, but it was seeing her, and it reminds me of me because I have that much dedication and devotion where I've made that many changes in a short period of time. So it was my ability to see someone else having that much dedication towards oneself.
No, I can completely resonate with that because that's something I practice every day. I look at where I'm at, the season I'm in, and I want to be constantly growing. I want to, and I think a big part of that was going through my own personal ceremony with you, and it made me strive to just want to continue growing and showing up for myself. I learned to show up for myself a lot more, and it makes me show up better for those that I love and around me and everything that I touch. So I witnessed that firsthand. What do you do after these ceremonies to take care of yourself?
Self-care is definitely a big part of that. Um, I've I started off in the beginning, particularly when it started to be a lot of ceremonies back to back to back. Because initially it started off being more group style, and then eventually, um, around like 2023, it started to shift more into like one-on-ones, more personal. And during that time frame, I was, doing quite a few, and I would notice, I'm not going to call it a burnout, but I would notice some sort of doing a lot, and then there is like this tanking that happens.
Like a drain of energy?
Yeah. So then it was important for me to start understanding that as I'm giving, it is also important for me to give space to give back to me as well too. So then understanding how to properly find this flow. And that's one of the things I would say that I was looking at. I was looking at how do I find my flow where I can still be of service, I can still uh, do this work and provide for others, but also I'm providing for myself too. So in a sense, if I'm telling the person that I'm taking through an experience, you got to take care of yourself, I have to be the living proof of exactly what I'm actually saying. So then it was a moment for me to see how am I taking care of myself and how am I giving back to me. And that's how I started to create this, I call it this rotation, whether it is through music, um, modalities such as acupuncture, float tank, sauna, uh, different ways where I'm giving back to my body, giving back to my nervous system, calming down my nervous system, and also just finding that stillness, finding that peace. So then I would look at my schedule and I would say, okay, I have these experiences here, and then I would say, okay, let me put in self
Space
care.
for me.
So then it created like this flow. So then I have other things that I actually do on my own accord that, in terms of like when I'm doing an experience for someone, it's important for me to not match the energy that's taking place. Because if I'm guiding the experience, I can meet them where they're at. If they're going through like an emotion of fear, sadness, anger, that has a vibration, that has an energy attached to it. So then it's important for me not to match that energy to the point where I'm leaving with that energy. And it was important for me to just acknowledge what's in the field, understand how to move through it, but also not take it home with me. So then I have different things that I'm doing that I've also learned over the years on how to, like, in a sense, not clean house, but keep my space and my space, not my space and my body, my mind clear.
Like a cleanse?
Yes, like a cleanse. And I consistently, almost like when you're keeping your house, clean on a consistent basis. So then I would continuously, maintenance, that's the word I was looking for. I would continue with this maintenance within myself. And that's how, over the years, I've come to really understand how to find my flow of maintaining me, my sanity.
And that's so important. And you touched on energies and how heavy energies can be. And I think people don't really see the magnitude of how an energy can be heavy to you and receiving other people's energies. And we don't even realize we do that like all day long in our jobs, in places that we go, and you can leave with an energy. Talk to me like a little more about energy and its importance and what it can give and take from you.
So the angle that I'll go about answering that question, I have a good friend of mine that introduced me to an Iroquois word called Orenda, Orenda. And the basis of it is who in the room is basically commanding the energy. And so, for example, between you and I, when I'm expressing, I'm in command of the energy. And then there's a moment where I pull back and then you step in with a question and now you're in command of the energy. So then it becomes like this natural flow. So we're working together. But there's other individuals that would come into a place and they're being extremely loud, rambunctious, and they're attempting to like take control of the actual energetic space. And however they're showing up, if isn't another that's in a sense attempting to meet that and actually bring that to a centered space, then it can get reckless. So then that energy, if other people in a sense match it, so that for example, that person is showing up with a lot of anger in the room and other people are tending to match that anger, then they're going to leave with that anger as well too. So it's a sense of matching the energy of the space. If you're with a loved one or with a partner and there's an argument taking place, both people are matching that energy. And that's why when they leave, they both leave with that.
Wow.
But if one has the awareness and can actually shift it, then with Orenda, they're actually utilizing their capacity to actually move that energy into a space of willpower or peace or whatever they're looking to move towards. And that's something that's important for people to be mindful of. When you're somewhere, are you matching, are you impinging yourself in what's taking place? Are you getting caught up in the story? Or are you acknowledging the story and then deciding, who do I want to be in relation to it? Do I want to still be in my peaceful place? Do I want to still be compassionate to what's taking place, but not feel like, I got to come in and fix or save or, get caught up in it? I can still be part of it, but also maintain who I am.
That's why mindfulness is just so important. You have to be so
Yes.
aware, when you're in situations.
These practices, whether it's the meditation, whether it's a walk in nature, like all these practices is to reconnect with who you are. And in that reconnection of who you are, you're mindful of, am I truly matching me, my essence, the purity of my heart? Or am I allowing, these other energies or moments that I've experienced to just, in a sense, control me?
To take over.
So those moments of those practices is to find your center.
And like speaking of practices, so sound healing and breath work are two of your core tools. You taught me about breath work as well. For a person who's never experienced either of those, can you explain what actually happens in the body and the mind when sound or breath is used like intentionally?
You're changing your physiology in the moment, and one of the things that happens is through the breath or through the vibration or through the frequencies, you are bringing this equilibrium in your system. We're born with 70% water, and through the breath and through the vibration, we're actually bringing this equilibrium in our system. And there's this his name is Dr. Emoto that did the study where he froze these water crystals and before freezing them would put a lot of things that has to do with love close to one and a lot of things that has to do with hate towards another. And the one that had the love intentions on it came out in these pictures as these beautiful crystals with perfect symmetric shapes, and the other ones were all over the place. So when we think of our bodies are, also made up of water. So when we think of these different vibrations and energies around us, that's what's happening within our system. That's why sometimes we'll feel like we're all over the place. And through the breath and through the sound, through the vibration, we're actually finding that homeostasis within us. So that's part of the reason why I feel like where we're going moving forward is understanding more of how sound, vibration, and frequency can also be medicine, can also bring healing within us.
And that's very true. So like what happens like in a sound healing session that doesn't happen in like your traditional therapy room, for example, like with an individual therapist, one-on-one, just speaking to you?
Um, I would say the sound healing session, in a sense, creates this vacuum. It creates this bubble, and within that bubble, we have, like, I call it like brainwave states, and within that bubble, we're in a sense recalibrating the way our brain is communicating with each other. And if we're able to find that equilibrium through those brain waves, then clarity comes through. Our ability to, I think Albert Einstein would take these naps and would hold on to something right before falling asleep, and it was to actually get to a certain brainwave state, and it was to get intuitive messages. So a lot of times when you're in the sound healing, because you're in a certain brainwave, there is these things that tend to come up through your intuition. So then a regular therapy session, you're in a different brainwave state. You're a lot more alert, a lot more active. So then there's only so much that can happen in that brainwave. But as you start to slow it down, particularly when you're going to sleep, you're actually slowing down your brainwaves. That's why I like having an evening routine before going to sleep. In a sense, what it's doing, it's actually slowing down your brain waves. So you're getting closer and closer to that brainwave to go to sleep. So then the sound healing is doing something similar. It's slowing you down so you get into, like, when you think of like a body of water just being still. So that's what that is, in a sense, doing to you. That's why you feel so floaty and um,
Like a freeness.
yes, exactly correct. And there's so much peace, similar to when you look at a body of water that's just peaceful. So that sound is just running through your body, and as it's running through your body, the waters that are in your body, it's basically bringing that homeostasis, that equilibrium in your system.
And I know that, you know, you bring a very valuable part into people's ceremonies with sound and with music and instruments during your plant-based ceremonies. In my own personal journey, I remember, you know, waking up and sitting up and saying to you, I was like, you're playing like the soundtrack of my life. I think that's what I said to you. And it was just beautiful because I felt like the music and the sound was dictating kind of where my journey was going. And you could feel
Yes.
my energy change because then you change the instrument you were using, or you'd come closer to one side of me and everything in my vision that I was seeing would go leaning towards you more. And why do you think in those ceremonies that sound and music and instruments play such a vital role in their outcomes and where they go?
I think universally, the same way, when we're attempting to get in a certain mood, we would listen to a certain track, or we would listen to a certain style of music. And I feel like the music changes the mood that you're in. And it's, uh, when I think of like a mixer with these different faders are creating these different parts of you to come online. So when I'm taking the person through the experience, it's almost like I'm using different faders to kind of move the way your experience is going. And whatever, because sometimes I can, and I got that from DJing, I would say, okay, an hour from now, I want to get everyone to be in this vibe. So I would be doing things an hour before,
Like in
because
preparation.
exactly correct, because I knew in 1 hour from now, this is where I want us to be. So when I'm taking someone through an experience, I would say an hour from now, I know they require a good cry. So I would do this, this, and this, because when we get to that zone, that cry is going to come
Yeah.
because I can feel it's right in the field. So then I'm working the journey to bring that person to that place to be able to fully release. But I've been preparing an hour before. So then to them, it feels like, how is this happening? And it was because I caught it an hour before. So then I'm taking you through that experience to get to that point, but I'm doing it moment by moment. Even though I may have an idea of where we are going, but I'm still figuring it out because I may play a song and I'm like, no, let's wait like 2 more songs to put that one there. So then in real time, I'm still doing that. I have an idea of where we want to go, but I'm still in the moment playing with the different sounds and vibrations.
Is a lot of your reaction to like body language of what you see them going through and
Body language, the way the person's breathing, um, the way even certain sounds the person might make. Um, there's a lot of nuances that happen in the field that I also pick up on as well too. And the other thing that I wanted to add to that is whenever I'm taking someone through an experience, I know it's not just me. I know it's that person's higher spirit, their ancestors, their spiritual team, their guardian angels. Like there's a whole team
present. Absolutely.
doing this experience. So then I understand I'm just a vessel tangibly doing these things or being part of it. But I also understand there's an entire team working. So then I'm becoming a channel to receive the message on what is necessary for that person at that time as I'm working with the team. So then a lot of times what I'm getting is not just from me, it's also from the team as well too.
Wow.
So then I'm allowing myself to be a team player. So like when you look at soccer or basketball or any other sport, I'm just playing my role and within the team. So then to answer your question, like the sounds and the vibration is it's kind of when you think of like a needle poking you. So if like poke you this way, you might move that way, and I poke you that way. So then the sounds and the vibrations are kind of doing that, or similar to like acupuncture, like when you're putting these different needles or pings, or you're feeling something in a certain space. It's getting you to move in different ways, and that movement, in a sense, is kind of creating a symphony in real time. So that symphony is basically your journey unfolding.
So beautiful. I remember mine so vividly. And I remember at one point, I'm having the ceremony laying in a bed blindfolded, but I remember like it's like my spirit came out of my body and I'm looking at myself there in the bed doing the journey. And I'm like, this is where I needed to be. This is what needed to happen. And I'm looking at myself, like assuring myself, you're in a safe space. This is going to be okay.
A lot of people equate that to like a birth of a child or something significant that has happened in their life, getting married. It's a moment that you always remember. Like your first journey is like a moment that
I will never forget it. And I wear it like a badge of honor. I tell people how it changed my life. I come to a point where I was ready for change and I didn't know what change looked like. And I knew it needed to happen. And it was just like the first step to opening a beautiful window.
Keywords you said, ready for change.
Yeah, I was definitely ready for change. Yeah, I think you have to be.
Yeah.
And it was very circumstantial because I did the journey to protect a family member who wanted to do a journey or who was recommended to do a journey. And I wanted to do it to protect them, to see the safety of it. And I said, you know what, if anything's going to happen to somebody, because, I'm always in control and my fear took over. I said, if something's going to happen, it will happen to me first. Let me go first. And I believe in life. I'm a firm believer that everything is playing its part.
Yeah.
And the situation at that time and the season I was in,
Mm-hmm.
What was a challenge and what led us to the point where those journeys had to be done
Mm-hmm.
needed to happen.
I agree.
And I needed to step up first so I could grow, so the other person could grow, and we could grow together by doing that. Like, it's all just meant to be a certain way, and you have to trust that process, like what people say.
Exactly correct. And that's a key thing that you said, is to truly give advice to someone else, you must first become the advice. I always say it's not what comes out of your mouth, it's who you're being.
Absolutely.
And what you just said right now, it's like you were truly becoming the example for that loved one that you're talking about, that change is possible whenever you're ready for it, yet I'm being the example of it. And it's important for me to go first so you can see. Because seeing is, believing. So then through your actions, through stepping up for yourself, it's how you're showing that loved one whenever you're ready to step up for yourself, it's available for you too.
Oh, my psilocybin journey with you was the concrete foundation that I needed for change in my life. I have never been the same since. Never. And I know I've told you that many times. I've never been the same. What is the role of plant medicine in healing that nothing else can do? Because it's so empowering and amazing, and it opens up, things inside of you that you can't do on your own.
It's not that you can't do on your own, you can. I look at plant medicine, I guess the word I'm going to utilize, it's almost like getting like a special sauce or a special formula, or almost like a back door into something. And it's what would take someone a couple of years, a lifetime, 10, 20, 30, 40 years to actually get working with these medicines. It almost kind of gives you like the not a cheat sheet, but it gives you the answers, and it gives you the awareness in such a faster path. So it isn't that the individual is unable to get there on their own, yet the amount of time that it would take is shortened. So then if you think of our parents or grandparents' lifetime, some of them never got to this place of awareness that we're getting to now. And they went through a whole lifetime and didn't get it. And then within you, like, you've already gotten it. So I feel like a lot of these medicines, they're just opening us up more to what's possible. That at a point in time, it used to be a lot longer to get to these places. Because I know of individuals like yogis, and there's a whole bunch of other people, Einstein, there's a whole bunch of other people that has gotten to these places of awareness. But now it's become a lot more frequent and a lot more accessible.
A lot more accessible.
Yeah, exactly correct. So then, and I feel that now is an important time for it, because as a species, we're all growing and evolving more towards a place of love, more towards a place of compassion, acceptance, community, being supportive to one another, seeing myself in the other person. And I feel like that's the reason why there's been a surge of, these medicines coming up to the surface, which they've always been around, but more in the indigenous cultures, whether it's in South America, the Amazon in Brazil. Uh, they've they've been in those cultures for hundreds and thousands of years, and now they're actually coming out and meeting people from other cultures. And I feel like this resurgence is giving the whole world a faster route to that love, to that acceptance, to that compassion.
What does like safety and ethics look like in this space? Because I think that's where a lot of fear lives for people, who want or are ready to accept change and growth and get to the next best version of themselves. But they have a fear, that something may happen. And the importance of having someone like yourself guide their journey, versus something they could find online or through other measures that may not be as safe?
Well, with safety, there is definitely the component of whether it's medications that have to do with SSRIs, any medicine that's kind of hitting different receptors in the brain is where you have that contraindication. So tapering off of some of these medications is important, which keeps you away from serotonin syndrome. And having someone that knows what they're doing is how you're going to understand if you are on, certain medications, how to taper off of them. And ultimately is to have your system be in such a clear centered space, because a lot of these medications, they're actually numbing, your emotions, they're numbing your capacity to truly be yourself. So once we can take that numbing agent out, then these plant medicines can truly bring you the awareness and how to change your life, so you no longer have to compress and suppress whatever it is that you're feeling. So that's one aspect of the safety. And in terms of the legality, back in the 60s and 70s, there's a great documentary on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful documentary that he was able to show why in the 60s and 70s there was, one, a surge of it, and two, why it went on the Schedule 1 list to begin with. So then as you're watching that documentary, then you can understand why the stigma was created in the first place, why all of these different commercials where if you take this thing, it's going to fry your brain came into play. It was to actually bring fear so individuals won't do, uh, won't take the medicine, but also to understand that there are proper paths of doing it, not just taking it,
Just taking it, yeah. You
just
won't have the same experience.
exactly correct, because it's the intentionality, the container, and just the reverence and how you're stepping into the experience that really decides, how it goes. The medicine meets you exactly how you're showing up. So if you're showing up to have fun, then that's really all it's going to be. But if you're truly showing up, for the betterment of you, then it's gonna show up that way. So then I feel like there's a shift happening with the legalities. Um, and they're beginning to see how this is actually something that is supportive. And there are a lot of these paths, particularly there's one called psychedelic assisted therapy that's actually coming through as an avenue to be able to utilize this in a clinical setting, and having, these proper precautions and parameters set in place so the person feels safe to do so. So then the way I've been doing it, it's more or less in that same avenue, but now they're becoming a lot more structured and, I guess, common, where it's more acceptable now versus at a point in time, it was either you were on one side or you were on the other side. But now there's a bridge taking place where there's a merge between the two of them. And then as far as, I would say the medications are definitely one safety thing, and the other is readiness, like you talked about earlier.
You have to be.
When someone is not truly ready, you don't want to go through the experience, because it's in a sense, the analogy that I give is like walking into a room that was dark and now you've turned it on, and if you are not ready to look at what was in that room, then it was better you had kept the light off. But if you're ready to get in that room and actually rearrange, take out what's not necessary, then yeah, let's flick on that light and let's get to work, which is pretty much what you've done. But when you're not ready for that, then it's best to just not do it. So that's also, for me, another point of safety as well too, because you're actually forcing yourself to do something that you're actually not ready for.
Absolutely.
So you're not really bringing all of you to the experience.
And you won't get the full value that it has to offer. You've used the phrase intentional containers grounded in safety, ethics, and sacred reverence. That language is striking, especially the word container. What does it mean to hold a container for someone's healing?
Container, for me is when we talk about not from a space of gender, but from a space of essence, when we speak of masculine essence and feminine essence, the container is the masculine essence. And the creativity that's happening within the journey is the feminine essence. So there is a birthing that's taking place within the actual experience. But for that birthing um, to really unfold, it requires a proper container to feel safe, to feel that it can just be its full authentic self. So I'm showing up as the container in my masculine essence, not so much as a masculine man, but more as the masculine essence to create this container. And within that container, we're birthing whatever is ready to be birthed. And that's what the feminine essence represents. It represents this creative life force that's taking place. And that's why you you cannot have the journey being in your mind, because your mind wants to know what's taking place. And whenever there's a birthing of something, there is this creation that has never been created before. So then the experience has this novelty that comes into play, but it requires a proper container to feel safe enough to just
Let go.
exactly correct, which is where that creative output comes into play. And I've had individuals tell me like, took the mushrooms and I was in this place and didn't have a great experience as well. I didn't have a great experience, and I was like, the container wasn't set. So the feeling safe to just let everything come through just wasn't there. So that's the reason why I use, the word container, is because when we go into the actual experience, particularly when I'm beginning and when I'm ending, I have this prayer that I do. That prayer, in a sense, is opening up the container, and then at the end, the prayer basically closes the container. So that's why I utilize that word.
And that makes complete sense. And it's like a wholeness that's created from doing that.
Exactly correct.
Tell me a little bit about Now You Can Exhale. Where did that name come from and what does it represent?
So Now You Can Excel started off with my DJ name. My DJ name is DJ Nice, NYCE. And initially, when I first created it, it was because I lived in New York for a while. And then I also, a lot of people used to say, "You're such a nice guy." So I didn't want to go by NICE. I decided to switch it to NYCE. So then for a very long time, it was just DJ Nice, DJ Nice, DJ Nice. And as I started to step more into this work, I think it was in meditation, or forgot how it came through, but I was doing something, and in the middle of doing it, I just saw the acronym NYCE, and it said, "Oh, now you can exhale." And then that's how it came through. So then that's how I started to go by that as an artist name, because I've also, recorded and released, different music and meditations and things of that nature. And also, I'm very big on the breath.
Yes.
So during the journey, you'll hear me a lot saying, breathe, focus on your intentions. And I felt like as you're going through the experience, by the time you get to the end, you feel like now you can exhale.
Right.
And that's how like the name just synced up.
I remember distinctly, and it's like the memories haven't faded. I know you said some people, like as time progresses, they kind of fade, what happened in their journey, and mine has always been crystal clear. Like I express it with such detail to people. And I remember specifically hearing you telling me to breathe when moments were getting hard in my journey, or you could see me like kind of holding on. And I kept hearing Jay Shetty's voice and telling me to do my breath work. My husband and I, like we bonded over his morning meditations, like when we first started dating and even currently. And I could hear his voice and your voice telling me to just breathe through this moment, you'll get through it. And then the journey would take a different route. Like once I started breathing, because you're completely conscious.
Yeah.
You just, your mind is, I feel like it's unlocked.
Yeah. In a sense, you've unlocked your ability to, I call it you're in a sense kind of tapping into a time in your childhood, a time in your life that that doorway is a lot more thin. I call it the veil. That veil is so much thin, and because it's thinner, you're able to change your relationship to that event. So if you thought this thing happened to you, that was one perspective of how you looked at what took place, but it was a perspective you had back then. Now that you have more awareness, you can actually change how you're looking at the event because it's an event. Similar to um, a building blowing up and then a whole bunch of people around it experiencing this building blowing up. But if you interview 100 people about this, they'll give you a different different version of it. So then when an event happens in your life, even though you had a perspective of how it took place, now you can actually come at it and look at it from a different angle and redefine what does this mean to me. Doesn't mean that it takes away the event itself, but you're choosing to empower yourself and how you're relating to the actual experience. So then it becomes this thing that you thought happened to you to now this thing is happening for you. And then eventually you're looking at it as happening through you.
That's amazing. That's amazing what it can do. What does it actually feel like to exhale and like stop bracing yourself, and like have you experienced that yourself?
Many times. I've reminded myself all the time to be mindful of the tension that's being built and to just breathe and just let it move through. Because every emotion is an energy in motion. So then it's looking to pass on through to bring you an awareness, an answer, or something that you were not aware of before. And if you can breathe through it, then you can allow this energy to move through you. You're not trying to hold on to it. But if you hold on to the emotion, then you have to store it in your body when it's ready to be processed. A lot of times in the actual journey, you're allowing, it's almost like this bottled thing that you're giving room to move. So now if you get in the habit of continuously doing that, then the energy is just flowing. It's just moving through you. And that is ultimately what brings you the peace that you're looking for in your life.
Yeah, I remember waking up from like one of the moments where we were moving into a different medicine, and I looked at you and I was like, I just feel like 1,000 pounds were lifted off of me. Like I feel so light, and not from a weight perspective, just like energy and heaviness and stress. I just felt like free. I don't know if everyone feels like that, but like in my own journey, that's how I felt.
That is the sign that your journey is moving in a beautiful way.
That's
You
amazing.
want to feel lighter and lighter and lighter as you get through
I
the
felt
experience.
so light, but I didn't feel heavy going into it. Like consciously feel heavy.
Yeah, that's because when you're moving in your day-to-day life, you're not consciously aware of all those different things that are there. But as you're working with the medicine is that's why I said the whole thing about walking into the dark room. When you walk into the dark room, you have no idea where, all these things are. You might be moving like a little candle, but the minute you flick on the light, then you're like, oh, I can see all these different things that was always there. And that's part of why our mind protects us so well. It's shielding off all these different things that, might be causing pain or might be causing more stress in our system. So then as we get older, we just keep stacking on these protectors to keep us quote unquote safe. But it's actually an illusion of safety. It's not true safety. So then when you can actually truly empower yourself, then you're really taking command of your own safety, not feeling like I need to be protected. I can actually, just take care of myself and show up as myself. And a lot of times when you have these protectors, you 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 tend to show up as different roles and different versions of you depending on which situations you're going to. And when you're living that way, you in a sense having to like flick these switches depending on what situation you're in. And then as you go through, you know, the journey or whatever other modality, because those medicines are not the only route. They happen to be an effective route, but they're not the only route. Whenever you're doing personal development work, you're learning how to find that oneness within yourself. So when you're moving through life, doesn't matter where you go, it's still you. You might have access to how you're relating to different situations and different people, yet it doesn't change who you are.
Wow. No, that is very, very true. So, Alex, you've spent 20 years helping other people heal, whether it's from music, your journeys, plant medicine, even in your role as a pharmacist. I want to ask you something that healers are often not asked. What have you had to heal in yourself?
Quite a few things. I've had to heal. I'll start with the most recent one. The most recent one was my own belief of what I feel that I can do, which had to do with me creating music. For a very long time, I always believed that I had to collaborate with somebody to create something that was good enough. So my sense of self-worth and what I thought that I can actually create was something that I really overcame, particularly when I was releasing this last EP, because I decided to release it all on my own. And I did sound engineering back in like 2002, and I never really did anything with it because I held on to this belief that I was not creative enough or good enough to actually really pursue the field. And through doing this work, my own personal growth happened with that project because I actually had to relook at, why am I still holding on to this belief and where is it stemming from? And I realized that a lot of it was stemming from childhood. And how can I give back to me to know that I am capable, to know that I have the capacity to actually create something? So then self-worth was one of them. Self-expression was another. A lot of times I would stay quiet, or I would not truly express how I feel in the moment, or I would feel like my expression was too much, or what I had to say wasn't valuable enough. So there's a lot of different things that I've worked through. And another important one was I grew up a lot around women, and there were my mothers, my aunties. So I didn't have many male role models growing up. So that was also another important thing on my journey, was truly understanding what does it mean to be an aligned masculine man leading in my life. And what is that, not only as an idea, but what does it look like, an embodiment in my life? And it's still an ongoing thing, but it was me having to restructure who I am to really bring more space for those parts to actually be online. So then it's it's constant work, because I'm always observing me, and I'm seeing what is it about me that I am proud of, what is it about me that I do like, but also what is it about me that I can improve on, not looking at it from the perspective of, not being good enough or things of that nature, which is how I used to look at it, but looking at it from the perspective of, this is where I am now, and this is where I have the space to actually be more of. So let me be patient with that process. Let me create space for that process. And let me just be present with it. So over time, I've learned to really be patient with myself. I've learned to really congratulate and celebrate everything that I'm doing, regardless of how small they are. And I feel like all these different things are hurdles that I've overcome
Through your resilience.
through my resilience.
Yeah.
Exactly correct.
Yeah. Resilience is such a strong word that I don't think people use enough to relate in their life and look at how they've been resilient to things and how they've overcome it. And it's really like changing that lens and changing words in the story that make the story sound completely different. And it makes it sound like from one of struggle and challenges to triumph and wins. You can do that with just like changing that.
Language recalibration was a big part of my growth as well too. Like what you just said, focusing on the struggles and the pain, this and that, to now restructuring how I'm speaking, to still acknowledging those struggles, still acknowledging the pain, but not dwelling and focusing on it.
Absolutely.
Actually giving room to like celebrate, me, celebrate what I've done.
Always clap for yourself.
And also, truly being supportive and happy for another when they're doing something, instead of letting that person's growth bring up my own insecurities. It's like, oh, my insecurities are there. Let me deal with that. But let me not get to a place where I need to bring this person down to feel better about myself.
That happens so much nowadays that people can't clap for others because it highlights insecurities they have in themselves. And it's truly sad that like people don't take a deeper look within and help build others up, which in turn helps them grow as well.
Yeah, and it really just boils down to awareness, which is what this work offers. It offers the opportunity to become aware of our own habits and patterns, and also looking at it as it's ancestral. At a point in time, I just thought it was the ancestors of where that person is coming from. But as I've done these different journeys, I've noticed that this is a collective ancestral habit and pattern that we're all in this generation actually really changing, and just acknowledging those habits, acknowledging those patterns, but in now deciding I want to do something else.
So you mentioned ancestral, and you work with a lot of ancestral wisdom and indigenous lineages. Like, so for a lot of people in the audience, who is there maybe in a complicated relationship with their own ancestry? Some of it's painful, some of it's lost. Like, what do you say to someone who feels disconnected from their roots?
It's a great question. I would say because I've had individuals tell me that they don't remember their childhoods, they don't really remember, if they grew up somewhere else, for example, and they're disconnected from their culture. I tend to find that when you can slow down enough, you can really tap into your intuition. And through tapping into your intuition, there will be certain synchronicities that will show up. And that in itself will start to paint a picture of how you can truly reconnect with who you are. And even if you may not have direct access, or you, for example, with myself, like my dad, passed away in '06, and I don't really have so much of a knowledge and knowing of his background and his ancestry. And I've allowed myself through my intuition to just tap into the field and let the synchronicities, kind of bring that to life. And one of those synchronicities was bringing me to Egypt, which I feel part of my ancestry comes from that part of the world. And even when I went there, the person that came to pick me up from the airport, um, greeted me by a kiss on the cheek, and that's how I greeted my dad. And just through that synchronicity, I can just tell, like, oh, this is ancestry connection taking place at the moment. So because I allow myself to tap into my intuition and just following that flow, I felt the connection. So I would say, to answer that question, is just really trusting your intuition and trusting the flow, trusting the synchronicities of how things are taking place, and not doubting what is happening, not being scared. I was talking to a friend yesterday. She was talking about an experience that happened with a cat, and she asked a question, and then something with the cat happened to answer the question, and she got scared because of it. I was just like, you asked the question, you got an
You
answer.
got an answer.
So trust the synchronicities of what's taking place. So I feel like if we give ourselves the opportunity to just like trust the moment, trust how things are coming together, then those connections will
restore themselves.
Yeah.
All right. And in doing like these journeys, to say, what, obviously there's a safety aspect of it, and then the guidance aspect that you provide. Why do we urge people to do these ceremonies in safe settings with people like yourself who have this experience versus, something they see online and they want to try it and they go and try it on their own because there's so much risk involved in that, I assume, what would you say to someone to understand how important it is to have someone guide you who has experienced such a great experience like yourself through these journeys?
A lot of individuals, great question, by the way. A lot of individuals just think that I can just do this on my own. Or just look at, the trend and feel like, oh, I can just hop on this trend. And not understanding that there are so many unspoken things that are happening behind the curtain that to the person that's going through the journey, they're just not aware of. And that's the thing about experiences with these journeys. Every journey is its own journey. And even me having done so many, I'm still showing up to every journey like I'm doing it for the first time. And when someone just take it upon themselves to go through the experience, there's this question mark of what's going to happen. So for me, I'm utilizing all of my experience to be that container. So whatever is going to show up, I can catch it way in advance and already know how to keep everything moving in a certain way. So then when the person takes upon themselves to actually take themselves through the actual experience, it may start off great, and then an hour it turns and goes in a completely different path. Anxiety, paranoia, like there's so many different things that can show up, but them not knowing, like, okay, what do I do?
Like how to navigate through that.
Exactly correct. And that's part of having a facilitator or guide present, is because that facilitator and that guide is guiding you through the actual experience. It's like crossing a bridge for the first time that you've never crossed. That person has crossed that bridge many, many times. So then that person is guiding you, to cross that bridge to get to the other side. So a lot of people just think, oh, I can just cross this bridge on my own. But if something shows up and it starts to get a little rocky, you've never done this before. Or even if you have, like, there's a certain understanding of how to navigate through certain things to be able to continue on with the journey that's important. And I feel like that's really what the guide and the facilitator, particularly myself, is really bringing. I'm bringing all of my experience with, pharmacy, occupational therapy, the DJing. Like I'm stacking all these skills into the journey. I'm basically just changing the platform and then applying it. But those skills are transferable. So then as I'm, going through as I'm taking the person through the actual experience, I'm utilizing all of me and all of what I know to guide you through the actual process. So then, and also I don't take the medicine when I'm facilitating. So then it's almost like they're not I'm gonna use that. I was gonna say there's an adult required in the actual experience, but that's not what I was attempting to say.
Somewhat of like a chaperone.
Yes, exactly correct. So then there's someone in a clear head state that is, yeah, perfectly
Managing
said.
the moment.
And exactly managing the moment. So then that's part of why having someone that has experience in this is important, particularly that can catch something way in advance so it doesn't veer off.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Like the safety of the journey is the priority. The healing comes secondary. That has to be the absolute priority.
Yeah.
if someone is listening to this right now and they're exhausted, not just tired, but like bone deep exhausted from holding everything together, kind of like how I was, what do you want them to know, about what this can do to help them?
So I'll answer it this way. I want them to know that it doesn't matter what's happening in your life, you're never stuck. And that's one of the things that I learned in my own life. I'm never stuck. I always have a choice. I always have an option. I always have a way. So whether it is plant medicine, whether it is another modality, whatever the path is, knowing that whatever the situation is, you're not just stuck there. There's always a way to, get to your freedom, to get to your safety, to get to your peace, and to feel like you're not shackled. And that's the one thing that's always stayed with me from going through these different processes. I realize, regardless of what's showing up in my life, I'm never stuck. So that's what I would say to that individual. It's like,
It's a great mindset to keep. Tell our listeners where they can find you, like a website or information, those who want to know more about this, and like, what are you building right now?
I'm part of a team called Lokahi, Lokhahi, and they are a beautiful team that's really working on wellness, but from a wholesome perspective. So, the plant medicine is one aspect of it, and there's a whole bunch of other modalities and how to prepare and work with someone to get them from one point to another. So Lokahi Holistic Healing is one of them, .com. You can find me on Instagram. Now You Can Exhale. Spotify, Apple Music, same. Now You Can Exhale. Yeah, there's multiple routes to get a hold of me. Also, I'm part of another organization called Combo Practitioner Collective. As combo is another medicine that I also serve as well too. So I do certain things on my own, but I'm also in collaboration with a lot of other facilitators as well too. Because I believe, we're building community and
Awareness
yeah,
to something that is so helpful to help people. Imagine if everybody had a little bit of healing,
exactly
how
correct.
much better everything could be.
And I realize that it's important for me to be in collaboration with others because it's this vision is greater than me. So then there's this beautiful quote that I always keep dear to my heart from Dr. Wayne Dyer, and it's "Don't die with your music still inside of you." So then I look at everything that I'm doing. It's that I'm bringing this music out to be shared.
Thank you so much, Alex. And thank you, everyone, for spending time with me today. I hope this conversation gave you something meaningful in your life that you can carry, share, or apply within your own life. And if you enjoy this episode, please make sure to like, follow, and share it with someone who could be a part of this community and benefit from this information. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'll see you on the next episode.